Welcome. Today, we share Ngozi and Emeka's story, a journey of love, ambition, and pride. What happens when success challenges tradition? Stay tuned to find out. Ngozi and Emeka's story began during their days at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Ngozi, a vibrant and ambitious student of business administration, was widely admired for her intelligence and drive. Emeka, studying economics, was equally brilliant but preferred to avoid the spotlight. He was content, observing, thinking, and planning. Their paths crossed during the student leadership workshop, where a casual debate on economic policies turned into a lively conversation that lasted hours. From that moment, their connection deepened. Late-night study sessions turned into long walks under the baobab trees on campus, where they would talk about their dreams. Ngozi wanted to lead in the corporate world, breaking barriers and inspiring others. Emeka, on the other hand, envisioned a stable job in public service, working to improve the lives of everyday Nigerians through policy and planning. "We'll be unstoppable," Ngozi often said, her eyes alight with ambition. "Imagine what we can achieve together." Emeka would smile. "Together, we'll build something incredible." Their love blossomed from their shared vision of a bright future, built on mutual respect and a partnership of equals. Years later, after they had both graduated and secured their first jobs, Emeka proposed during a visit to their hometown. It was a quiet moment by the riverside where they had often spoken about their dreams. Emeka slipped a simple but meaningful ring onto her finger. "Ngozi," he said, his voice steady but full of emotion, "I may not have much now, but I promise to stand by you and build the future we've always dreamed of." Ngozi hugged him tightly. "It's not about what you have, Emeka. It's about who we are together. I believe in us." Their wedding was a celebration of love, attended by family and friends. They moved into a modest apartment in Lagos and began building their life together. Money was tight, but they pooled their resources, made sacrifices, and supported each other through challenges. In the early years, Ngozi and Emeka thrived as a team. Emeka's job as a civil servant provided stability, while Ngozi's corporate career began to take off. She worked long hours, often coming home late, but Emeka was always there to support her. "Don't forget to eat," he would say, leaving a plate of jollof rice warming on the stove. "You need energy to keep winning those boardroom battles." Ngozi, in turn, encouraged Emeka to pursue professional development opportunities. "You're brilliant, Emeka," she would say. "Don't let the slow pace of government work hold you back." They were a partnership, each rooting for the other's success. But as Ngozi's career soared, their dynamic began to shift in ways neither of them anticipated. Ngozi's career took a meteoric rise when she was promoted to regional manager and later transferred to the Lagos head office. Her salary doubled, then tripled. While she was thrilled, Emeka quietly struggled to adjust to their new reality. Ngozi's late nights at work became frequent. One evening, she called Emeka as she rushed between meetings. "Emeka, I need your help," she said. "Can you pick up a few things from the market on your way home? I'm stuck in a meeting." "The market?" Emeka repeated, surprised. "But that's your thing." "I know," Ngozi replied, her tone apologetic. "But I can't leave the office now. Please, just for today." Reluctantly, Emeka agreed, but as he navigated the bustling market, he felt uncomfortable. The market had always been Ngozi's domain, not out of obligation, but because she enjoyed it. Taking on this role made him feel like he was stepping into unfamiliar territory. When Emeka returned home, he cooked dinner, but the task left him drained. As he set the table, he couldn't shake the feeling that his role in the marriage was shifting in ways he didn't fully understand. The next day, Emeka shared his experience with his friends during lunch. Their reaction surprised him. "So, she's the boss at work and now she's bossing you at home too?" Tunde teased. "It's not like that," Emeka said, trying to brush off the comment. "But it starts this way," another friend added. "First is dinner. Next, you'll be washing her car while she's out running the world." Their laughter lingered with Emeka long after the conversation ended. Was this how others saw his marriage? Was Ngozi starting to see him differently too? As weeks passed, Emeka found himself taking on more household responsibilities: laundry, shopping, and cleaning. At first, he did it out of love and support, but over time, resentment began to creep in. One evening, Ngozi came home late to find Emeka waiting for her. "I made dinner," he said flatly. "Again?" Ngozi paused, sensing his frustration. "Thank you, Emeka. I know it's been a lot lately, but things will ease up after this project." "That's what you said last month," Emeka replied, his voice tinged with bitterness. "Ngozi, it feels like I'm the only one keeping this house running." Ngozi frowned. "I thought we were in this together." "In this together?" Emeka said, shaking his head. "Sometimes it feels like I'm just filling in the gaps." Ngozi was taken aback. She had always seen Emeka as her partner, but his words revealed a deeper frustration she hadn't fully acknowledged. The conversation escalated quickly. Ngozi tried to explain that her workload was temporary, but Emeka wasn't convinced. "You're so caught up in your career," he said, "that you don't see how it's affecting us." "That's not fair," Ngozi replied, her voice rising. "Everything I'm doing is for us, to give us the life we have always talked about." "But at what cost?" Emeka shot back. "It feels like I'm losing you." That night, the house was silent. Ngozi sat alone in the living room, replaying the argument. She realized she had taken Emeka's support for granted, but she also wondered why he couldn't see her success as their shared victory. In their bedroom, Emeka lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He wanted to be proud of Ngozi, but couldn't shake the feeling that her success was leaving him behind. Their 10th wedding anniversary was approaching, and Ngozi hoped it would rekindle the joy in their marriage. She decided to buy Emeka a gift that would show her appreciation, a luxury wristwatch he had admired in a store window. Emeka, meanwhile, saved for weeks to buy Ngozi a gold bracelet. It wasn't extravagant, but it was meaningful, a symbol of their love and simplicity. On the morning of their anniversary, Emeka gave Ngozi the bracelet. "It's beautiful," Ngozi said, her eyes bright with gratitude. She kissed him warmly. When Ngozi presented the wristwatch, Emeka forced a smile. "It's nice," he said, but inside he felt overshadowed. The expensive gift reminded him of her financial superiority. That evening, Emeka said, "You didn't have to spend so much." "It's our anniversary," Ngozi replied. "I wanted to get you something special." "It feels like you're showing off," Emeka muttered. Ngozi froze. "Showing off? Emeka, I bought it because I love you." It's just, I saved for weeks to get you that bracelet, and now it feels like my effort doesn't even compare. Ngozi's heart sank. Why does it have to be a comparison? This was never about who spent more. But the damage was done. Their anniversary ended in silence, with both retreating to their thoughts. The tension from the anniversary lingered. What should have been a celebration of their love became another reminder of the growing rift between them. They started avoiding deep conversations, sticking to the mundane routines of daily life. But beneath the surface, resentment brewed. One evening, Ngozi suggested they go out for dinner. "It's on me," she said, casually as they entered the restaurant. "You've been working hard, and you deserve a break." Emeka stiffened. "Why do you always have to pay?" Ngozi looked at him, confused. "What do you mean? It's just practical. I earn more, so it makes sense." "That's exactly the problem," Emeka snapped, his voice rising. "You earn more, so now you think you're in charge." Ngozi stared at him, hurt. "Emeka, I've never thought that. Why would you even say such a thing?" "It's not what you say, it's how you act," Emeka said, glaring at her. "You always offer to pay, like I can't handle it. Do you know how that makes me feel?" Ngozi took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Emeka, I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I just want to make things easier for us." "Easier for who?" Emeka retorted. "You think you're being generous, but it feels like you're trying to prove that you're better than me." The dinner, meant to be a relaxing evening, ended in icy silence. Ngozi quietly paid the bill, while Emeka stared out the window, his expression distant. Their disagreements about money began to spill into other areas of their lives. Whenever Ngozi suggested a financial decision, whether it was investing in a new project, upgrading their home, or planning a vacation, Emeka resisted. "You always think you know best because you earn more," he accused one afternoon when Ngozi proposed they hire a housekeeper to ease their workload. "That's not true," Ngozi replied, frustration creeping into her voice. "I just want to make life easier for both of us." "It's not about making life easier," Emeka shot back. "It's about you wanting to control everything." Ngozi threw up her hands. "Emeka, I don't want to control anything. I just want us to stop fighting." But Emeka couldn't shake the feeling that he was losing his place in their marriage. Every suggestion Ngozi made felt like another reminder that she was the one in charge now, whether she meant it that way or not. Exhausted by the constant arguments, Ngozi began to pull back. She stopped suggesting solutions and avoided conversations about money altogether. But her silence only deepened the distance between them. Emeka, too, retreated into himself. He spent more time with his friends, who only reinforced his insecurities. "Don't let her take over," Tunde said one evening. "Once a woman starts earning more, she'll forget what it means to respect her husband." Emeka nodded silently, but inside he felt conflicted. He loved Ngozi and didn't want to lose her, but he couldn't ignore the growing resentment he felt every time he looked at her. Their home became a battlefield of unspoken frustrations. Ngozi felt unappreciated, while Emeka felt overshadowed. They stopped talking about their dreams and instead focused on surviving each day. One evening, as Ngozi sat alone in the living room, she thought about the early days of their marriage. How had they gone from being a team to this? Was it her success that had driven a wedge between them? Or was it Emeka's inability to adapt? She didn't know the answer, but she knew that something had to change before they lost each other completely. The weeks after their anniversary were marked by silence and distance. Emeka and Ngozi avoided each other, but their once vibrant home was now a place of tension and unease. They maintained appearances for friends and family, but their connection was fraying. Ngozi buried herself in work, using it as an escape from the growing tension at home. The office became her refuge, a place where her opinions were valued and her success celebrated. But even in her achievements, she felt a pang of emptiness. One evening, as she stayed late to finish a report, her assistant, Bimpi, knocked on the door. "You're still here, ma'am? It's almost 9 p.m. Ngozi gave a weak smile. "Just wrapping up a few things." Bimpi hesitated before speaking. "Ma'am, if you don't mind me saying, work is important, but so is family. Don't let this place take that away." Ngozi's smile faded. She appreciated Bimpi's concern, but she didn't have the energy to explain. Home didn't feel like a place of rest anymore. It felt like walking on eggshells, trying to avoid yet another argument with Emeka. Meanwhile, Emeka felt increasingly isolated. He wanted to support Ngozi, but every time he tried, it felt like he was being overshadowed. He turned to his friends for solace, but their advice often fueled his frustrations. "You're letting her run the show," Tunde said one evening. "A man has to remind his wife who's in charge." Emeka nodded, but felt uneasy. He didn't want to dominate Ngozi. He loved her too much for that. He just wanted to feel like her equal again. At work, Emeka's boss noticed his distracted behavior. Calling him into the office, the older man said, "Emeka, I can see something's weighing on you. Let me give you some advice. Marriage is about compromise, but sometimes compromise means swallowing your pride and supporting your partner's success." Emeka left the office feeling conflicted. He knew his pride was part of the problem, but he couldn't ignore how sidelined he felt in his own marriage. Ngozi decided to host a dinner party, hoping it would remind Emeka of the joy they once shared. She invited close friends and colleagues, planning every detail to make it a night to remember. The evening started well. Ngozi's guests praised her hospitality and success, and she felt a glimmer of hope. But Emeka, sitting quietly in the corner, felt increasingly out of place. At one point, Ngozi's colleague, Mr. Adi, turned to Emeka. "You must be so proud of Ngozi," he said. "She's an inspiration to all of us." Emeka forced a smile. "Of course, she's done very well." But inside, the words stung. Every compliment Ngozi received felt like another reminder of his inadequacy. When the guests left, Emeka turned to Ngozi, his frustration boiling over. "That was humiliating." Ngozi frowned. "Humiliating? How?" "All your colleagues see me as nothing more than your husband," Emeka said, his voice sharp. "They don't respect me." Ngozi sighed. "They were just acknowledging my work, Emeka. Why do you always have to make it a competition?" "Because you've made it one," Emeka shouted. "You act like you're the only one contributing to this marriage." Ngozi's voice trembled. "I have done nothing but try to support us, Emeka. But if you can't see that, I don't know what else to do." The argument ended with Emeka storming out, leaving Ngozi standing alone in the empty house. The days following the dinner party were heavy with silence. Ngozi and Emeka barely spoke to each other. When they did, their words were clipped and cold. The love and laughter that once filled their home seemed like a distant memory. Things came to a head during a family gathering organized by Emeka's parents to celebrate his mother's 65th birthday. Ngozi was determined to make a good impression, so she arrived early to help with the preparations, even though her heart wasn't in it. Emeka, still simmering from their last argument, barely acknowledged her efforts. The celebration started joyfully, with relatives laughing and sharing stories. But tension lingered between Ngozi and Emeka, unspoken but palpable. During dinner, the conversation turned to Ngozi's career. "Ngozi, you're doing so well for yourself," Emeka's uncle said, beaming. "We're all so proud of you. It's rare to see a woman achieve so much." Ngozi smiled politely, glancing at Emeka for support. He offered a tight-lipped nod, but said nothing. Another relative, however, couldn't resist adding, "Emeka, maybe you should take some lessons from Ngozi. Start a business or something. Government jobs aren't what they used to be." The table fell silent. Emeka's jaw tightened, his grip on his fork so tight his knuckles turned white. Finally, he stood up abruptly. "Excuse me," he said curtly, walking out of the dining room. Ngozi followed Emeka outside, catching up with him by the garden. "Emeka, what was that?" she asked, frustration and concern mingling in her voice. "What was what?" Emeka snapped, avoiding her gaze. "You stormed out like a child," Ngozi said, her voice rising. "They didn't mean anything by it." "That's easy for you to say," Emeka shot back, finally meeting her eyes. "You're the one they're all praising. Do you know how humiliating it is to sit there while they treat me like I'm just your accessory?" Ngozi's heart sank. "Emeka, I've never thought of you that way. Why can't you just be happy for me?" "Because it feels like I'm losing you," Emeka shouted. "You've built this whole new world for yourself, and I'm not part of it. It's like you don't even need me anymore." Tears welled in Ngozi's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I've always wanted us to succeed together, Emeka. I've never stopped loving you, but you let your pride turn us into enemies." Emeka shook his head, his voice dropping. "It's not just pride, Ngozi. It's feeling like I don't matter anymore." The weight of his words hung between them. For the first time, Ngozi saw the depth of Emeka's pain. But instead of bringing them closer, the moment only highlighted how far apart they had drifted. The drive home was silent. Ngozi stared out the window, her mind racing. She thought about the early days of their marriage when they were inseparable. How had things gone so wrong? Was her ambition to blame? Or was it Emeka's refusal to adapt to their changing roles? Emeka, meanwhile, gripped the steering wheel, his thoughts spiraling. He loved Ngozi deeply, but her success had become a constant reminder of his own perceived failures. He wondered if they could ever go back to the way things were. That night, for the first time since their wedding, they slept in separate rooms. The days after the family gathering passed in a blur. Emeka and Ngozi avoided each other as much as possible. When they did speak, it was only about practical matters, bills, groceries, schedules. The warmth and intimacy of their marriage felt irretrievably lost. One evening, Ngozi sat alone in the living room, flipping through their wedding album. She lingered on a photo of them dancing, their faces radiant with joy and hope. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she realized how far they had come from that moment. She thought about all the sacrifices Emeka had made for her career, taking on more responsibilities at home, enduring long nights alone, and supporting her even when his own career stagnated. Had she taken him for granted? Had her ambition blinded her to his needs? But then she remembered all the times she tried to include him, to celebrate their shared success, only to be met with resistance. She wondered why Emeka couldn't see her achievements as a victory for both of them. In their bedroom, Emeka sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the watch Ngozi had given him for the anniversary. He had left it in its box since the day she gave it to him, unable to wear it without feeling a pang of inadequacy. He thought about how much he loved Ngozi, her strength, her determination, her ability to overcome obstacles. He had fallen in love with her ambition, but now it felt like that same ambition had left him behind. Was his pride the real problem? Had he let societal expectations cloud his judgment? He wondered if he had been unfair to Ngozi, punishing her for succeeding in ways he hadn't. That night, Ngozi and Emeka found themselves in the living room, sitting on opposite ends of the couch. The silence was heavy but not hostile. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Ngozi broke the silence. "Emeka, do you think we can fix this?" Her voice trembled with vulnerability. Emeka looked at her, his face unreadable. He wanted to say yes, but the words wouldn't come. He didn't know if they could go back to the way things were, or if they even should. Who is truly at fault here? Is Ngozi to blame for failing to see how her success affected Emeka? Or is Emeka at fault for letting his pride overshadow his love? Or are they both victims of a society that pits success against tradition, forcing couples to choose between ambition and unity? Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey through love, ambition, and the challenges of modern relationships. Ngozi and Emeka's story reminds us that behind every success lies a deeper struggle. Who is truly at fault when love is tested by pride and societal expectations? Let us know your thoughts. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking stories like this one. Until next time, keep reflecting and keep growing.